The megapixel wars is in full swing, with multiple companies releasing high-resolution 64 megapixel equipped smartphones in the past few months. Now, we've reviewed 3 of those phones in the past few weeks in the form of the Realme XT, the Redmi Note 8 Pro, and the vivo NEX 3, but many of you have been asking which 64 megapixel smartphone is the best. Now we're going to try and answer that question with our grand 64 megapixel camera comparo as we put all 3 smartphones to the test. Hi guys, my name is John Nieves and welcome to our massive 3-way camera shootout. Now, all 3 phones that we'll be taking a look at today all share the same primary sensor, Samsung's new 64 megapixel ISOCELL Bright GW1. Now, image quality isn't all about the sensor on a phone. Software and the image processor on the chipset contributes quite a bit to the end result, which obviously you will be seeing in the comparisons below. Now, just a quick note for our testing methodology, all phones were taken with AI and HDR on, with phones shooting in auto. We tried to get the same angle every time we shot an image, but obviously since we are human and not robots, there will be some slight variations in the shots that we took. Now, first off, daylight photos. All 3 phones took really good photos in daylight, but the devil is in the details. Now, in the shot of the reindeer with a bit of backlight, the Redmi Note 8 Pro shot looks a little bit more underexposed compared to the Realme XT and the NEX 3, though it has better noise suppression. You can see that clearer when we crop the image down to the legs of the reindeer. Now, the NEX 3 takes the best shot, delivering excellent exposure even with a heavy backlight without associated noise that accompanies the photo from the Realme XT. But again, that's expected because the NEX 3 is significantly more expensive than the 2. The Redmi Note 8 Pro doesn't always have a leg up versus the mid-range Realme XT, as in the case of this particular photo. Now, taking a closer look at the cropped image of this flower, the Realme XT resolved details better than the Redmi 8 Pro and the NEX 3. Now, while the flagship phone still took a great photo with plenty of detail, the photo is a little bit more underexposed than we would have liked. Now, one of the things we noticed with the Redmi Note 8 Pro compared to the 2 other phones is that it doesn't really have quite the same amount of dynamic range. Now, that can easily be seen in the shot of a lamp inside a restaurant. The lampshade's ribs seemingly disappear in this image taken by the Redmi Note 8 Pro, while it is still present on the Realme XT and the NEX 3. Now, color also varies quite a bit within the 3 phones, with the Redmi Note 8 Pro taking more realistic looking photos, while the Realme XT has more vibrant colors that really seem to pop. Vivo's NEX 3 seemed to straddle the line between the 2, though again we're seeing a tendency for the phone to underexpose images in this particular shot. The Redmi Note 8 Pro struggles a little bit compared to the Realme X3 when shooting under artificial light, with colors looking a little flatter than we would have liked. The NEX 3 beats both phones though, as it managed to resolve more detail than either phone with the same amount of limited light. Moving on to the wide-angle lens, all 3 phones capture good images, but again, the devil's in the details. The Redmi Note 8 Pro managed to resolve more detail in the globe compared to the Realme XT Pro, which basically just shows most of it as one green mass. But like in previous photos, the NEX 3's wide-angle shot looked better, posting an image that has a good middle ground between vibrant colors without sacrificing detail. Now, this shot shows how well the Realme XT does when it comes to dynamic range versus the Redmi Note 8 Pro. The Realme XT exposes this wooden dragon better compared to the Redmi Note 8 Pro, though at the expense of increased noise, which can clearly be seen in the neck near the legs. As is the case with most of the phones in the shootout, the NEX 3 has the best shot thanks to its superior performance when it comes to HDR shooting. Now, all 3 phones are able to take 64 megapixel shots. We don't recommend you taking photos in this particular mode, but if you need to, the feature is there for you. Checking the crop shot reveals that the Redmi Note 8 Pro has a little bit of noise in the shot, looks a little bit more underexposed than either the Realme XT and the NEX 3, which is a recurring theme in this shootout. The Realme XT meanwhile shows really aggressive sharpening by software, while the NEX3 has the best balance between the two. Again, that's a recurring theme in this particular video. Moving on to very low light shooting, we can see that the Realme XT produces the most vivid photo taken in night mode, though again at the expense of over sharpening. There's plenty of noise introduced in the shot for all three phones, but that's understandable considering that you are shooting in night mode. All three phones took really good portrait photos, though we found that the Realme XT again introduced far more noise than the NEX3 or the Redmi Note 8 Pro in the photo, which you can clearly see in Duo's legs. As for selfies, the NX3 had the best balanced photo of the three, even in harsher backlight, with the Redmi Note 8 underexposing the photo as usual. The Redmi Note 8 Pro's deficiencies in dynamic range really shows itself in this video clip that you currently see, where you can barely see the background and the waterfall just because of the harsh backlight that is coming in. That is not the case with the Realme X3 and the NX3, which shows plenty of detail and doesn't get affected by backlight all that much. Despite all three phones using the identical camera sensor, lenses and camera software play a big part when taking photos and videos. That being said, each phone has its own strengths and weaknesses. The Redmi Note 8 Pro has dynamic range issues, but has the most natural looking colors. The Realme XT takes really vibrant shots at the expense of added noise and reduced detail sometimes, while the NEX3 takes the most balanced photos, though suffers a little bit when shooting in low light compared to these two phones. You also have to think about the price of these three phones. That's usually the most important part of any smartphone choosing process, or any time somebody chooses a smartphone. Considering that the Redmi Note 8 Pro is only priced at $11,490, that makes it a perfect fit for a lot of people who don't really mind some of the deficiencies of the phone when shooting photos and videos. Now, the Realme XT is slightly more expensive at $16,990, but then again, you are getting more vibrant shots and better HDR or dynamic range when you're shooting photos. At the top of the pile is the NX3, which is priced at $39,990. Now, it has the most balanced camera performance, and obviously you're getting a lot more than like a good camera. You're also getting a flagship processor, like a waterfall display and all that things. So basically the NX3 is just a flagship phone and it demands flagship prices. So that is pretty much it for this video. Thank you very much, guys. It's been a little long, I know, but it's worth looking at the strengths and weaknesses of these three 64 megapixel smartphones. As usual, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, please click on that subscribe button, click on that like button if this actually helped you deciding on which 64 megapixel smartphone you're buying. Click on that notification bell so you know exactly when our next video drops. As always, this is John Nieves. Thank you, Unbox. Peace out.